and they told me, month 1, you're not going to be able to walk with assistance. Month 2, you'll be wheelchair bound. Month 3 and 4, you'll be bed bound and lose the ability to eat, swallow, and talk. Until stage 4 of this disease, where you likely slip into a coma and pass away. And it was pretty matter of fact. What they didn't prepare me for was the insane pain I was going to be in.
I'm Nurse Jessica Seitz.
And I'm Nurse Erica.
And we're Nurses Uncorked,
the podcast that takes nursing facts
with nursing comedy and makes a cocktail out of them.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. And please rate, review, and download.
Also, if you're interested in supporting Nurses Uncorked Podcast and getting early access to episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and bloopers,
check out the patron link in the description of the podcast.
Attention nurses, you have to get this card game. It is hysterical. If you've ever heard of the card game that ends in humanity, we've got the nursing card game for you. Nurses Against Insanity. It is hysterical. Erica, tell them.
It's so much fun, and I was thinking it would be great if you put up one in your break room on the table there on the rare occasion that nurses get a break, right? And you just start asking some of the questions. People have answer cards that they can choose from. It's hilarious. It's so much fun with a group of nurses.
And what I love is that this was developed by 2 veterinarians, but they're in the healthcare industry. They also have some other card games on their site. But if you head to vetsagainst.insanity.myshopify.com, you can find the nursing game there and use code UNCORKED and get a total of 30% off of your purchase. Buy one for you and some of your nurse besties. Hey guys, welcome back to Nurses Uncorked. It's Nurse Jessica and Nurse Erica. And on today's podcast, we have the only known survivor of locked-in syndrome. If you don't know what locked-in syndrome is, you will very soon. We're going to deep dive and explain what that is. But just to kind of give you guys, and I don't think I told Erica this, maybe I did, but my husband is a physician, actually. And when I told him I was having a guest on that was the survivor of locked-in syndrome, his response to me was, shit. In medical school, that was the one diagnosis that, they would play games, what's your worst fear of a disease? And hands down, that's the one that they all said was, the scariest to them ever. So I was like, really? He's like, no, of course I know what that is. And that's not something you want. So I was just, if that gives you guys kind of any indication of to survive this is crazy. So having that said, Jake, welcome. Jake Haendel, welcome to Nurses Uncorked Podcast.
It's great to be here. Thanks, guys.
This is going to be so much fun. I am so excited. You guys have no idea.
Should we do a cocktail before we
tell
everyone what this is?
Sure.
And all about Jake?
Yeah, okay. Why not?
I think the listeners should pour a cocktail for this one. The story,
because this is a lot, you guys. This is a crazy, crazy story. I had never heard of this disease before. I don't know if I learned about it and forgot, but yeah, you're going to want to hear this episode.
So since I know everything about Jake and I've seen that he does drink beer with his podcast friend, I heard that on one video. That's kind of how you guys started talking about stuff. I figured I'd do a beer. I don't usually do beer, but this one was interesting. It's called Fat Clouds, and it just, I don't know, it looks like something kind of cool. It's got an owl on it. It's from Arcane Ale Works. No idea, but I'm going to try it.
It looks different.
Look at it. It's got some weird, creepy owl on there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not your typical Budweiser.
Is it an IPA?
It is thank you for asking. It's a Citra Double Dry Hopped Double India Pale Ale. That's what it says. That's a lot of verbiage there.
That's a lot of verbiage. That is an IPA, though.
Okay.
Of a class, for sure.
Good to know. See, I knew Jake would know. I have no idea. My husband would have known, but I don't know. So cheers, everybody. And
cheers.
I guess I'll give it a whirl.
Virtual cheers.
Not bad.
Good.
I'm not a beer person, but that I probably will finish this off and be feeling pretty good. Let's talk a little bit about Jake. Jake Haendel, the miracle man, I like that phrase, is the only documented person to survive stage 4 locked-in syndrome. While he couldn't move, speak, or breathe on his own, Jake remained fully conscious and retained all feeling in his body. Doctors and nurses thought he was comatose and unaware of what was taking place around him. Jake's experience has fascinated Boston's top medical doctors and myself, who continue to study his case to better understand this disease. For the last 4 years, Jake has dedicated himself to his recovery while prioritizing helping others along the way. After finally leaving the hospital in 2020, he was met with a series of accessibility challenges. He quickly realized that accessible doesn't always mean truly accessible and saw an opportunity to improve the lives of millions navigating similar obstacles. Jake is also now the co-creator of a new podcast called Blink that we'll be talking about, but I'm hooked on already. I'm waiting for episode 3, like
Me too.
now, because they left me on a cliffhanger. Blink, the Jake Haendel story, and the inspiration behind Ahoi, a startup company dedicated to making the world more accessible. Ahoi's app helps users find locations that best fit their accessibility needs, whatever they may be, and we'll talk about that too. As the only survivor of locked-in syndrome, Jake has become an advocate, motivational speaker, and writer. All of that. We're going to talk about all of it. But first, Erica's going to tell you what the hell is locked-in syndrome.
Okay, yeah, I had to do a little bit of a deep dive. Acute toxic progressive leukoencephalopathy, ATPL, also known as locked-in syndrome, is a rare neurological condition that attacks the white matter of the brain, affecting only about 1 to 2 people per 100,000. Sometimes referred to as a pseudo-coma, it has been described as your body becoming a prison. It is characterized by near total body paralysis of voluntary muscles while preserving consciousness. It is caused by damage to the brainstem, which can result from things like a stroke, demyelination, tumors of the pons or the brainstem area, a TBI, infection, or medication overdose. The prognosis varies depending on the underlying cause and severity of damage. There are 3 different types of locked-in syndrome: classic form, incomplete form, and total form, with varying grades. Some patients may regain partial mobility or communication skills, while others may remain permanently locked in. There is no cure. Treatments are aimed at supportive therapy.
Scary AF.
That is
Yes.
scary as fuck, man. Seriously.
It is.
The whole
It
thing
is.
right there gives me anxiety just talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives me anxiety. It brings me back to it, honestly.
I'm sure PTSD abounds, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you, Jake, so much for being here. This is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it's really great being here. Thank you, guys.
So let's start with some hard questions, Jake. You ready? You ready for this?
I'm ready for him. Lay him on me.
All right. And Jake does not know the question, so this is just going to be fly by the seat of his pants, literally.
Jake was sent the questions, but did
not
open them.
look at them.
I love it. I love it. All right. So you are on social media, which is where I've watched a lot of your videos, like TikTok. You were very transparent. You've been transparent about your history of drug addiction in the past. And you were no stranger to law enforcement. You've met the police many, many times. Do you think that your long-term drug use was what led you to developing ATPL?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's certainly been attributed to that in the mainstream media and in my social media. It's a big part of Blink, what we are investigating. I had a really big question day one. I went to the ER and I was kind of like, get admitted in emergency MRI and this diagnosis. And they were like, well, thank you for being honest with us about your drug use. We may have not found this rare disease otherwise. I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm like, how was it caused? And they were like, well, inhalation of a toxin is the only way to get this. And because, you told us how you inhaled mainly opiates and street heroin, that's probably what did it. And in the back of my head, I was like, well, why is nobody else sick? And the hospital staff kind of was like, oh, well, that's because people inject heroin. And, like, that's why other people aren't sick. Not most people don't smoke it. And I'm like, well, I've kind of, like, sell this stuff to a variety of folks that smoke it. And I've been smoking the same stuff for years with, a crew of like 40, like, why aren't they sick? And it kind of got brushed off. And then they were like, you have some, we can test it. And long story short, it was just not worth the argument with some people in my family. And so it was, I'm like, I got 6 months to live here, like, whatever.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure. I know it was something I inhaled.
And you don't like needles, do you?
I don't like needles. Some nursing thing, I was, a very hard stick. And when you're in that state of maybe a little after locked in, even during, I was extremely hypersensitive. And those needles really hurt me beyond me just not liking them. It felt awful.
So, yeah, that's why you never went from inhalation to injecting heroin, I would assume, because that was not your cup of tea.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would have been cost effective to go that route. But no.
But isn't that crazy to think that they're like, oh, that could have possibly saved your life. Had you started using needles, you might have been better off, which is crazy.
I mean, I've been saying this my entire life. I'm kind of like got the best luck in the world and the worst luck in the world. And I thought I was being safer, like the safer option of something extremely not safe. And then go figure, I get this like extremely rare disease caused only by inhalation. Definitely went through my head what you're bringing up, Jeff. Like, oh. Should have shot that dope anyway.
I love your sense of humor.
So it's an acquired taste.
Okay. In 2017, while you were working as an executive chef, your wife and coworkers began expressing concern and telling you that you didn't look like yourself, that they were seeing some odd things. And then there was a day that you were pulled over by the police. Can you walk us through that day?
Yeah, I'll back it up a little bit just about what people were noticing before that day where I got pulled over. But basically, it all started with my voice being a little higher pitched. And, it kind of sounded drunk, honestly. And it was just like a little off, I guess. But I noticed people noticing and being like, everything okay? And I was like, yeah, and I would limit my sentences to less words so people wouldn't pick up on it. And that went on for a few days, and then it was balance, and then it was my driving. And balance in the slightest, so like I'm walking through the halls at night, I'm like reaching out for the walls just as, I could still like walk relatively fine. I mean, it's not like me walking nowadays. And then it was my driving. And basically, it's kind of like if an 18-wheeler like drove by you on the highway at a really high rate of speed and the wind kind of blew you, that kind of like swerved to regain control. That was like happening to me on like 3 times in a short 10-mile drive. And that, I wasn't the best driver in the world. I probably had a heavy foot, but like I wasn't swerving like that ever. And so I would kind of like talk to myself and be, Jesus, Jake, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, pull it together. And then this day that you're referring to, so yeah, I'll be extremely uncandid here for you
Appreciate
folks at Nurses Uncorked. But I'm like late for work, and I was such an addict at this point that I would like freebase heroin like for 10-minute sessions before I would like head off to anywhere. I did not have time to do this because I was so late, so I was doing this while driving, which sounds insane and is insane. But I was probably like the best driver at freebasing tinfoil in the world, or one of them. So I had this method where I drive with my knee, and and
how do men do that? My husband can do that. He can eat a sub sandwich and drive with his knees. I can't.
It's a gift. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
I honestly don't know, and I can't even drive my scooter nowadays with one hand, so I'm way behind the curve.
But you were basically a very high functional addict.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly was. And as years of this goes on, I think I was letting things maybe slip away that, and then the same talking about was the first day of brain damage that I think really was noticeable. I mean, in the week prior with the voice and the balance, obviously there was stuff going on. My brain was kind of slowly or rapidly disconnecting from my body. So I'm doing that crazy knee drive, trying to get my fix in before I have to be at work. And yeah, I just see blues, behind me. And as you mentioned in the intro, no stranger to law enforcement. I wasn't super concerned. Some people would be like, "Oh my God." I'm just like, okay, put stuff away, pull it together and talk to the cop like you've done 100 other times. And at this moment, he's walking towards the car. That's when I noticed my brain really disconnected, and I'm trying to put the lighter, a hollowed out big pen, tinfoil, and a bag of narcotics in the center console, right? And then it's in my hand, and I'm just my brain knows what to do, but the arm's not being responsive, or the hand. So now the cop's almost there, and this is in my hand.
Oh my God.
And I'm just kind of frozen. And then he just comes in hot. I roll down the window. He's like, "You're driving like a maniac. What the hell's going on?" And I'm stuff is in my hand, and I'm thinking "Oh my God, he's gonna see." And I'm the only thing I can focus on is trying to get this man my license that he certainly doesn't care about. And yeah, I guess I'll stop there. But that was the beginning of that day. That
was the undeniable moment that something was going on, right?
Yeah, and it still didn't register with me right away. So I get ripped out of the car. I get arrested. I get booked, and I'm just it didn't register that you should really go get checked out. Something really bad's here. I was just kind of this is strange. Why am I acting like this?
Yeah.
But not you should go to the emergency room because it seems like you have brain damage. That certainly did not go through my head.
Had you ever been arrested before, or was that your first time being arrested?
I've been put in cuffs a lot. I've been arrested. I've never been actually convicted of a crime. I mean, I was lucky in that sense too, but I'm no stranger to being locked up and spend the night in jail, or multiple nights in jail, but never went to prison. In court, always managed to.
Yeah, how does that work? If you're if they have charges against you, or they find out you have 6 months to live, and they're just well, we're just gonna let this go, bro.
That's something I've never really talked about ever. I'm glad you asked about that. So, I certainly was given some, the charges. They were not super lenient on my death or dying diagnosis being a roadblock to me getting off scot-free here. So I actually was, like, as I'm declining, I had to go into court.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And being dragged with the gate belt. And I remember I whacked my head really hard one day in the in the entrance to the court. And at one point, the lawyer or whatever was finally like, look, he's, I just, those well, I don't know if you know, but in the courtrooms, they have really hardwood benches. It's really uncomfortable. That was killing me. And I couldn't even tolerate sitting in the courtroom even for 2 minutes. But eventually, I'm kind of the details of this are escaping me, but they did kind of drop it, I think. And luckily with statute of limitations, I think I'm in the clear, but I guess when this airs, we'll find out.
They're like, oh shit, he lived.
Yeah. Oh shit, let's call him in here. And
so you were told by the doctors that obviously you had an extremely rare terminal progressive brain disease. They put their hand on your knee and they said you only had 6 months to live. They told you to expect 4 stages of the disease. How did the doctor really explain it to you that day? And did your journey compare to how it was described?
Yeah. So I think their explanation was they really hit it right on the head. Especially for something so rare. It's interesting looking back how well they were able to articulate what was about to happen. So yeah, it was a heavy day, doctor handed my knee, or one of the doctors, big team in the room. There was definitely a charge and nurse in there and a variety of people. And they knew this was rare, extremely bad news. I was 27, younger guy. They wrote it on the whiteboard in the room. Acute Toxic Progressive Leukoencephalopathy. They explained what each word meant. I know now what acute meant. At the time, it was they were it's happening right now. Toxic in this case, something you inhaled that was toxic. Progressive, meaning it will only get worse. Leukoencephalopathy, disease of the white matter of your brain. And this is terminal. This is going to come on really hard. And they told me, month 1, you're not going to be able to walk with assistance. Month 2, you'll be wheelchair bound. Month 3 and 4, you'll be bed bound and lose the ability to eat, swallow, and talk. Until stage 4 of this disease, where you likely slip into a coma and pass away. It was pretty matter of fact. They definitely used some, I guess, bedside manner, or I could tell there was emotion behind it. It was matter of fact, but it was also caring, if that makes sense. And what they didn't prepare me for was the insane pain I was going to be in, which maybe they thought I heard enough bad news for the moment. So they were, I don't think it was, maybe they didn't know. I actually don't know, but, and I don't think there was anything that could prepare me for the pain and, the rapidness of the progression of this disease. I know they said month 2, you'll be wheelchair bound. I would say by week 2, I was wheelchair bound. I was so uncomfortable. I learned all about all different types of pain, neuropathy. It felt like my muscles were being contorted and stretched out, and hypersensitivity and diaphoresis and extremely fast heart rate and all that stuff all at once, while experiencing withdrawals, which It's kind of like, you know, the worst flu you ever had with a little bit of mental sickness of like impending doom and anxiety. And I'm sure it can also trigger high heart rate and these weird sensations and overheating. So the combined forces, I think, of the disease, the withdrawals, and then just the mental roller coaster of being like, hey, you have a terminal disease. You have 6 months left. Your life is kind of over, you know?
Yeah.
This was like a perfect storm to just, you know, it was rough.
I can't imagine. You describe how the nurses eventually stopped talking to you when they would come in your hospital room. And you found out that they already considered you brain dead from 2 nurses who had a conversation in front of you. Can you tell us about that?
You know, this is definitely stage 4 of the disease. And I noticed, you know, I was not much of a conversationalist. I was positional eye gaze, kind of stuck in bed. And I couldn't really do much of anything. And I knew, I was fully aware, I knew kind of like I'm heading into death, you know, so like I didn't really expect much. But nurses, healthcare workers, CNAs, whoever it was that would come into the room would typically be like, good morning, Mr. Haendel, like, it's Tuesday, I'm here to like change your IV, and we're, you know, the doctor's gonna do some tests, and like later today you're gonna get transferred, you know, down to the imaging room or like whatever it was. And then I noticed, you know, and I would hear these things and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. That's what's happening. It's like Tuesday, or, oh, that's where they probably dragged me to yesterday, and that was that loud machine they put me in, or like whatever. And then I noticed it felt like a week, but again, hard to gauge, I guess, when you're in that state. I noticed nobody was really saying much of anything, and I thought that was weird. Or actually, maybe I didn't think it was weird. It was just different. It was like, okay, like people are just doing
rude
things.
People are just rude.
Rude didn't really. I just was like, this is like an interesting observation. Like there isn't much talking here, you know? Like, but okay, I get it. Like I can't really talk back, so like I didn't think much of it. And then these nurses, you know, in the ICUs, they work on you in teams. And I know it was a situation where it had to be changed, right? It was like, you know, I feel like they changed my tube feed from a bolus feed, from a continual feed to a bolus feed. And, you know, that's when, I don't really have to tell you, but that's when it's like you get all your nutrients like all at once.
Right.
And that felt crazy, by the way. It was like, whoa, I'm really full. And that caused an explosion, really.
Okay.
And so these nurses come in, and they're kind of like laughing about I kind of like could imagine the horror show they had to deal with. And, you know, they were kind of like laughing and like about, and like, I was a little embarrassed, but also like, you know, what are you going to do? And that's when one says, I got to tell you about this real awkward hookup I had last night. And, you know, the other ones, and in my head, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, I want to hear this. I want to hear this, like, juicy gossip. And the other one's like kind of giggling, and she's like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk in front of the patient. And that's when she was like, oh, him, he can't hear you. He's brain dead anyway. And, I never heard the rest of the story, not because I don't think it was, well, I don't know if it was said or not, but I went into immediate panic. I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't realize how I was being perceived. I was like, oh my God, they think I'm brain dead. This is like the worst thing ever. Like, wait, am I brain dead? I'm like, I know who I am. I got my memories. I know where I am. I'm like, is this a hallucination? Is this what happens when you die? And I'm like, I'm going a million miles a second. I'm just like thoughts everywhere, and I'm scared as hell.
I wonder if these nurses have heard you talk about this, and they're probably like, "Oh shit,
Yeah.
we should not have. We should have not done that." I mean,
But I think that's a huge wake-up call for nurses, because
Yeah.
I think every nurse is probably guilty of that at some point. Most of the time I think we're pretty good about communicating with nonverbal patients, but we all kind of slip. And so that right there tells you, always keep communicating and assume they can hear you.
Earlier on, I would tell this story in, a lot in the hospital setting too, to like different ICUs and what have you. And, a lot of people are like, oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. And I never thought it was super horrible. And now the more I think about it, I'm like, I'm really glad, like, I overheard this, because otherwise I would have never known how I was perceived. And
Right.
it kind of put me on a mission too, I'm like, I gotta let him know. I'm like, how many other people are in these coma-like states, talking to themselves like me, doing like full life reviews. Like, I mean, I'm doing like complex problem solving for somebody that should have like minimal brain activity. I mean,
You're doing like trigonometry in your brain.
I won't take it that far. Yeah, like, but I'm the
You're there.
brain's
You're
function-
totally there.
Yeah, I'm totally there. So, but also it is a good reminder, because I heard plenty of other things that were kind of like, I'm glad I know how you really feel, nurse, whoever. I don't even have an image of you, but I can hear your voice, and I know how you really feel. Like, I heard good things, I heard bad things, I heard that thing, that definitely let me know, how I was being perceived.
Now we're going to take a moment to hear a word from our sponsor, stinkbombodorblocker.com.
Every single nurse knows that moment when you open and you walk in and you see the thing, and you're in that moment and you're like, there's no way this is happening right now.
Jake, at least you weren't eating your own stool. That happens. A lot of nurses see that.
Or
Patients
finger
that-
painting with it
Yeah.
on the walls.
I did have a neighbor. They nicknamed him the
Mhm.
painter.
Yep, they do that.
It was Van
They
Gogh.
do that.
This Van Gogh.
They go, yeah, they had to go in with these COVID masks every like month and chisel and repaint.
They needed stink bomb odor blocker.
That's our other sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little dab under your nose, and it's a little chapstick.
Blocks all the
It
horrible
blocks all the
smells.
odors. Yeah. As one of our sponsors, Stink Bomb Odor Blocker is available at stinkbombodorblocker.com, and they're generously giving away 15% off with code UNCORKED15. So if you want to block all those horrible smells, like Jake was generously describing, go to stinkbombodorblocker.com. All right, and we are back with Jake. And on to the next question. Did they ever do something nice, like put on your favorite TV show? This is just a random thought. Like, did you ever get to watch stuff you liked? I mean, you couldn't say put on the TV, but that would be nice.
Yeah. So what they do, and maybe you know this, they kind of ask your wife or your proxy or whoever's in the room, what does he like? And they'll be like, well, he likes Law and Order SVU, which is true. I did enjoy that time to time, but not necessarily in that state did I want a Law and Order SVU marathon. I mean, I would say to myself, like, how much rape can one dying man take? I mean, I was on a marathon. And the other thing I heard a lot of was the MGH spot channel, which I learned, which was nice for, maybe the first 30 minutes, but I realized it's on this, like, continuous 45-minute loop.
Oh my gosh.
And, too much, one thing that I will say is too much of anything is not good, and no one will ever know what they want until they're in the state that they're in. There were some times when I had a massive headache and wanted nothing. There was sometimes when I, like, frankly, just wanted, like, someone to, like, hum or calm me down or, like, like, I don't know if lullaby is the right word, but something, like, soothing and soft. And there were other times where I'm like, okay, like, some jammy melodic beat could be nice right now, but, like, it's really hard to say, and I think that's really challenging for nurses because there isn't, like, a one-size-fits-all solution here. Like, everyone's unique, everyone's different, and what they're going through is different too, and can change, as you know, on a dime.
You gave props to this one nurse that did come in and do something on your chest. Can you tell us about that? Because I love that story.
Yeah, I can see her right now, kind of. And I want to say she worked nights. I'm pretty sure she was a night. I think she was a nurse. And it was definitely somebody that was on my floor and would come into my room repeatedly. And I'm going through autonomic storming, which is kind of a disaster, leading to, like, high heart rate and a variety of other things. And my heart machine would go off like crazy all the time. And I just remember she would come in and she would, like, come right over my face. So, like, my eyes could actually see her, and she would make this kind of fist, and she would, I don't think it felt firm to me at the time. Now, anything, I was pretty fragile. So, but, she kind of, like, applied a little bit of pressure, not too much where it, like, hurt or anything. And she would just be like, calm down, honey. Like, you're okay. You're okay. You're going to be, calm your heart down. And I swear, like, my heart machine would stop beeping, and she really was able, and it was really challenging to get my heartbeat to go down ever. And through her tone and, like, I don't know if that thing she did on my chest, but her tone and just being like, calm down, you're okay, it's gonna be okay, certainly calm me down. And yes,
so sweet.
If she is listening to this by chance, definitely don't know her name, don't know how to find her, that'd be amazing. And I'm sure there's other people who do that type of stuff and definitely can make a difference.
If you're listening to this, we will reconnect y'all on a future podcast. Please let us know, right? At one point, you were on hospice and you heard healthcare workers say you wouldn't make it to Christmas. They said he only has hours to live, and you describe having some near-death experiences. What did you experience?
Yeah, I had several near-death experiences, but the one you're referring to, I had already heard he's not going to make it till Christmas. He's not going to make it to the new year. He's not going to make it. He's got hours left. This was one of the times I heard I had hours left or overheard. And I'd already heard for a while that he's going to die in this state. He's not going to. And so I'm, like, in the headspace where I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Why am I not dying? Like, I'm in so much pain. And I kind of got propped up on a pillow, which gave me first time in a while where I could see my chest, and my chest was blue. And I was like, oh, maybe I am dying. Like, that's new. I mean, it may have been blue the entire
That's
time.
new. That's a new development.
That's new to me. So yeah, what happened shortly after is there was arguing from a variety of family in the room, and I kind of like their volumes of their voices kind of went down, and the hum of a fluorescent light, or that it can make at times, I'm not sure what causes that. I started hearing this hum, and the hum would get louder and the voices would get quieter. And it was almost a little out of body experience where I feel like I was able to see people's mouths move like they were talking. And it's just like I knew they were still perhaps yelling or whatever, but there was just no more sound. There was a lot of hum, no more audible voice sound, a lot of hum. And this chronic pain that I've been in since pretty much diagnosis started to dissipate. Now, I hadn't had relief of pain in quite some time, and I was like, oh, wow, I think this is like what death is. And it kind of, in the moment, made me think about my mom on hospice. She battled breast cancer that metastasized everywhere for like 10 years. And it kind of gave me peace about that. I was like, oh, her last days, like, you know, leading up to death, like maybe it's not scary and all that bad. Maybe there is some peace. I did not see a light, which I know people have talked about, but it was this kind of out-of-body-ish experience, voices going to nothing, a loud hum, and pain seemed to go away. And then, you know, the old school cartoons, when they go to black at the end, they kind of like, it's like circle, and it kind of, that started happening with my vision. So it was kind of like, you know, the outerish of my iris was all black, and then kind of came in until there was just a little bit of vision left until it all went black. No pain, no more hum, just black. And I said to myself, I think I just died. And it felt like I fell asleep. And I think that's the closest to death that I experience. And I also want to say, I think everyone's experiences are probably unique, and who knows what's happening in the brain and chemicals that are released and whatnot. So I think there's a variety of things that can happen when someone experiences something like this. That's just like what happened for me. And then it was like I woke up some period later. I don't know if it was 2 hours. I don't know if it was 4 hours. And crazy pain again. It was like I was back to where I was before that, and literally was like, oh, fuck.
I was going to say, were you relieved that you were back, or were you like, damn it?
No, I was like, damn. I was like, fuck. Like, I was tired. I was like, I didn't, you know, it's hard for me to, you know, because I never wanted to die. But I mean, I was ready for it. I was like tired and pain. This was painful for not only me, people around me. I was like, I'm ready. Yeah. And then it sparked the thought of, whoa, there's much more scary things than death. And I might be stuck like this forever. And that was a lot scarier than dying. And I mean, I was in a constant state of panic and freaking out. beyond the pain. So yeah, it was a lot, and it was definitely not relief in that moment.
So ultimately, you were in this perpetual locked-in state or in-between state for about 10 months, I believe. How did you keep track of days and time? How did you
Not
you
well.
know? Not well.
So I counted seconds. I counted 60 of them slowly to be like, okay, that's what a minute feels like. And then I would try and be like, okay, I think there was 10 of those. And then
Wow.
I would get there and I'd be like, all right, this is like really hard to track. And I just remember a minute felt so long. And I was like, oh man. And then I relied on clues. So TNT, I think, that Law and Order marathon, Supernatural marathon. Oh man.
I bet you never watch Law and Order anymore.
No, I haven't. But there were clues. I believe Thursday Night Football would also be shown on TNT at that time. So I'd be like, oh, it's 8:15 some Thursday night, and other clues like that. When I would get rolled in certain, I never knew which hospital I was in. Until I would get rolled, I'd be like, oh, I'm in the neurology. Oh, I think I'm in the emergency room. Oh, I think this is Spalding. But there'd be clues when I would get rolled, where I would see some holiday decorations. I'm like, okay, it's Christmas time ish, Yeah, but 10 months is a really long time.
Yeah.
And it was really hard you definitely are hyper aware of clues. I never had a clock in my line of sight. I mean, 30-degree hospital angle. I saw some roof and some wall most of the time. Never a clock. I never saw when they showed those pain scales in the calendar. I never really got to see that. It was only being rolled. I would see a computer screensaver, and it was never long enough where I could see a date or time. Yeah.
Because for people that don't understand, you only had involuntary eye movements, not so where you were looking is where you were looking, correct?
Yeah. So the only thing I had was involuntary vertical eye movements. So eyes would do whatever they wanted to do. I think very rarely they were closed. They were typically open or fluttering. But it was only positional. I had no neck movement. So I saw if they angled the bed a certain way, put me at 30 degrees, 40 degrees, that was my line of sight. There was no tracking at this point where I could be like, okay, someone walked in, I'm following them. So if they rolled me, I would see it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Position.
No, I get it. I completely get what you're saying.
And I think it's another important point for the nurses that listen to the podcast. I know I have definitely put on what I've been told is a patient's favorite show or type of entertainment, but I don't know that I've ever thought about, well, they must be getting sick of this. Let me turn it to something else, or, let me make sure it's not on a, repeating a thing. But for anyone that knows me, if I am, God forbid, ever in this state, please put on documentaries for me, anything about biblical history, because I'm a super big nerd, the royal family, anything like that. That's what I want playing in the background to keep me engaged.
Erica, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think no matter what state you're in, could be like extreme pain, could be like panic crisis. Is this still valid? Like, do you want like a history lesson?
Oh, do you mean I want something else because of what I'm experiencing?
Well, I don't know, right?
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. It's possible.
I don't know.
Maybe I could care less about Jesus's early days or the Romanov family. Maybe I just want to hear like music or something. I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah, definitely too much of anything is no good.
My mom died of ovarian cancer way too young, so I can relate to you having to see your mother go through that, because I went through the same thing, and it's horrible. It's horrible to not be able to fix somebody. But it made I need to laugh for a minute or I'll cry. Your story of that, of like repetitive things playing over and over, made me think of my mother loved Ave Maria by Josh Groban, the song that he sang. He sang, it was beautiful. And she told me, how much she loved that song. Well, in her last like 5 hours, I had that song on repeat. I'm wondering, did she literally want to kill me? Like, was she like,
Jessica, enough. Oh my God, it was nice for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Enough of Ave Maria. But in my mind, I was like, she really likes this song and it's peaceful and maybe it's helping her transition, but she might have been cursing me the whole time.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, like, there's also this like thought that I have too, where it's like there are levels of lucidity, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe you come in for a moment and you're like, great, it's on, and then drift off somewhere else. If you are 100% present, though, like 5 hours of anything, like how many times do you think you have played in 5 hours? Like,
yeah,
240. That's a lot. She might be like,
I don't want to hear this song.
Jessica, what are you doing to me? What are you doing? I love this song, but now I hate it.
Right. But it definitely made me think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there is an answer, but
I think the answer is let's apply some more variety, people. Let's just, as a blanket statement, let's give it
as a task with your med pass, like change channel.
Let's give the comatose or people nearing the end some options, regardless.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, also that connection that I talked about from some nurses, telling me about their day or singing or telling me to calm down, like that stuff was so important for me. And regardless if they are coming in and out of stages of consciousness, lucidity, whatever, it's like you never know when you're in your med pass or whatever, when they might be present where they can hear you saying like, calm down, it's gonna be okay, like it's Tuesday morning, it's sunny, you're good. Like you never know when they'll hear that. And,
I literally want to hug that nurse, whoever she is. Like, it makes me want to hug her, because that is the sweetest thing. And in her mind, no, you may not have been able to hear her, or know that, but at the same time you could have, and she leaned to the side of that you could have. And I think more people need to do that, like, because like you said, the brain is not understood well. It's just not completely understood.
So much more to discover, I think, about. Would you like to stay for our end of episode Enema Award of the week?
He's like, what the hell is that?
Well,
I don't know if you're familiar with this, but we do a tongue-in-cheek Enema Award of the week every week.
Yeah, I kind of do want to witness that. Enema of the week.
This week's Enema Award is brought to you, as always, by Happy Bum Co., a leader in at-home enema solutions, our sponsor of the Enema Award. Let's talk about some of the reasons people are telling us they are really enjoying Happy Bum Co., a leader in at-home enema solutions. They are reporting things like it being safe, private, do it in your own home, it's convenient. It helps them to manage stress, take a little break during the day, instant relief from bloating and constipation. Some people are even reporting things like increased energy, better sleep, or lower period pain.
And what I love is that this company was started by a woman, a busy mother of 3 who suffered from constipation herself. So firsthand, she knew what it was like to be uncomfortable. And I love that about this company. You can go to happybumco.com to check out all their products and use code Nurses Uncorked for an additional 15% off your first bundle.
And so this is going to go to a chief nursing officer. Her name shall remain nameless, but if you know, you know. Allegedly, this CNO, in the process of earning her PhD, had to, as always, do a dissertation, and it may or may not have had something to do with staffing and using what we call ADOs, assignment despite objection forms, how often certain IMC units, like, I don't know, maybe a 3 West off the top of my head, were submitting these ADO forms. And I mean, how horrible would it be, allegedly, if a CNO used an IMC? And for those that aren't familiar, IMC is basically like a step down unit. They call it different things in different places. Used one in her own hospital as a guinea pig project for the research that may or may not have allegedly gone into their dissertation.
Without them knowing?
But forced this IMC step down unit, who was 1 to 4, which is already kind of too much. Like, I think IMC should be 1 to 3 most of the time, but pushed them 1 to 5, changing it, calling it a mixed acuity unit, which is just another excuse for giving nurses more patients, really. And inevitably, no surprise, patient falls increased, all sorts of bad outcomes allegedly increased. Nurses were crying, very upset, and yet she allegedly called this pilot program a success because, gaslighting is alive and well in the nursing profession. So yeah, allegedly for educational purposes, this week's Enema of the Week award goes to you, Chief Nursing Officer.
And she used this information in her dissertation, you're telling me?
It would appear, allegedly.
Well, I hope you get stomach cramps, lady, whoever you are, and I hope you shit yourself everywhere when you're least expecting it. Just when you think the enema has cleared, it hasn't, and you shit yourself as you're walking.
When you think it's safe to go to Target.
When you're in the mall and shopping at Dillard's, that you shit your pants. Okay? Enjoy. Yeah, I think that's well deserving. That's the kind of enema we were talking about, Jake. You don't get one of those. No.
Yeah. I don't want one.
He's like, I am speechless.
I'm a little speechless. Do you guys and want to tell you the worst enema story I think ever? If you guys
please,
please
share
let's
it.
hear it. We got to hear it. Nurses live for this stuff.
So, I can talk. I don't have my feeding tube out, but I'm like eating food again, which probably is why the nurse comes in. And as you guys know, you guys are really good at keeping track of folks' bowel routines. Yep. So one nurse comes in, she's like, "Honey, gotta give you an enema." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you haven't gone to the bathroom in 4 days." And I'm like, "I feel fine." She's like, "It doesn't matter." I'm like, "Why?" I didn't understand. And she's like, "Because it's really bad. You gotta go to the bathroom." And I'm like, okay, but not today.
We're gonna go for tomorrow.
I think my winning personality got her to put this off. Anyway, next day comes along and she's like, "Okay, you didn't go.
Today's the day."
Slow down. And by the way, I'm also taking Miralax twice a day, Docalax twice a day. Sorry, spa story.
Okay,
didn't work.
Okay.
Oh,
now it's time for Enema, right?
Okay.
And we need to up the game a little bit.
I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't like it. start doing. Okay. I feel fine, like, until this enema. And I'm given the enema, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so constipated. What did you do to me? And I can't go. And she's like, just, give it. And I'm like, I got
hold it as long as you can.
Yeah, hold it for 10 minutes. I don't know anyone that has ever held it for 10 minutes.
Okay. This was like 45 minutes.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like I'm going to die. And
but you weren't trying to hold it in, like you just couldn't go.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like really in discomfort, and I'm like audibly like aching, groaning, and the nurse is like, I'm gonna come back and check on you in like 10 minutes. Anyway, here's what went down. This is the grossest story I think ever.
You can't gross this out.
Okay. So I get really nauseous all of a sudden, and I'm laying like flat in the bed, and I'm like kind of paralyzed, and I just projectile vomit like.
Oh, it was stool. Yeah.
It was?
I'm asking. That happens. Yeah, when you get so backed up, it'll come out the other end.
Stool, but Jesus Christ.
He's like, what fresh new horror is that you speak of?
The puke went in the air and landed on my face, like splat.
Oh, it was like The Exorcist.
Simultaneously, I start peeing in the air and shitting myself like you wouldn't believe.
This sounds like a newborn baby.
So I'm puking, I'm pissing, and I'm like shitting the bed.
So the pressure of the vomiting helped you finally poop. Is that it?
And pee. And
it was just like everything like hit eject all at once. And
just all
came
together.
The nurse like opens the door and she's like,
went, no.
Oh my God. And like, anyway, this went on for what felt like 10 to 15 minutes of just like, and they brought in like the trolley cart to shower me after. And like, this is again, nursing home status where like you get a shower once a week. But I mean, I'm being given a massage. They're like, "Calm down, honey." Like they gave me some nice Ativan shower.
Nice.
Like it was just like it was crazy.
But did you feel better afterward? Did you feel better, Jake? In the end,
I mean, I was very shaken up. I felt like I just.
It was traumatizing.
It was so traumatizing. It's like,
oh my God,
you poor thing. Like, and then you're probably laying there with all of this on you, and you're like, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah, and I mean, I just like, I couldn't even shake that well because I was like paralyzed to get it off me. And but the grossness of it just made me keep gagging. And,
oh God.
It's just like the worst thing ever. And now,
Jake, you are amazing. That story was, you already got your awful enema somehow, and you weren't even given it by us technically. But good Lord,
that was
rough, to say the least.
Jake has been so generous with his time, and there is so much to cover here. We don't want to cut it short. So we're going to have to do a part 2, and you are not going to want to miss part 2, where he talks about a little true crime moment where he had to witness something happen, but was locked in and unable to intervene. So please join us next week for part 2 with Jake Haendel.